I was 14 years old, and I was grounded for the entire summer, being a typical teenage mischief. My mom punished me, and I begged her to get out of this punishment, and she said that if I would attend cake decorating classes with her, then she would allow me to get off the hook. In that cake decorating class, I got the feeling for a craft that would change my life. I wasn't the greatest student. I was labeled with a learning disability. I had a short attention span. I was hyper. But when I held that pastry bag for the first time, I was able to pipe the most perfect borders, pump out beautiful flowers. My friends, they were in shop class, and I was in home ec, making tasty milkshakes, learning how to sew, dropping cakes off in the teacher's lounge, hoping that they would overlook my most recent mischief. I learned at a young age that food was powerful and that I could completely change someone's day or even change their life. I spent the next decade of my life just pursuing the greats, studying the books, reading about the best restaurants in the world. I would put myself in front of them, whether it was working for them or even traveling to work for free. Escoffier, the man who basically wrote the modern cuisine, that the brigade system in 1901, or Thomas Keller of French Laundry, Alboulee, Marco Pierre White. Those are some of the greats, Grand Achatz. I put myself in these environments, and I mimicked their abilities. I mimicked the way that they would work on their stations, how they would move, how they would cook, the nuances of searing, poaching, braising, sous vide, learning about fast fingers and focus and a sense of urgency at all times. These great restaurants brought me to Las Vegas, and in 2006, I was hired by a 3 Michelin-starred chef from Paris. He wanted to open up a restaurant in Caesar's Palace that was an exact replica of his restaurant in France. Now, this restaurant prided itself on caviar, foie gras, truffles, exotic spices. Our pork would come from Pennsylvania, our chicken from New York, our fish was bought from a market in Tokyo. It just didn't make sense. I mean, to get all of your ingredients from all over the world, I understand to ship some exotic spices or maybe coffee, but every single thing, this is not what a restaurant was about. I mean, the original restaurants in the world were places where people come to be nourished, to become healthy. The word restaurant is actually spelled restaurateur instead of restaurateur, and the root word comes as restorer. That is the job of our restaurants, to restore people's health. Now, at the same exact time, I was given a book by a friend of mine called Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. Now, in this book, I learned so much about this thing called the industrial food system, something I had never even paid any attention to. You know, everything that was happening in the food before it came to the kitchen door, you know, on our grocery store shelves. Food that was being sprayed with toxins and poisons, or soil being nurtured through a chemical dependence. Our animals being raised in confinement. And as a chef, I was supporting this system. I had an epiphany, a sudden moment of insight. Food is what nourishes us. It's what gives us health. We should be eating clean, healthy food that doesn't destroy the very place that it comes from. So in 2009, I decided to move back home. I wrote a business plan. I borrowed $20,000. I bought 100 chickens. I bought 8 pigs, seeds. This is our first onion sprout. It sprouted like 3 days after we planted. We were excited, you know, we were off to a great start. I couldn't do this alone. I recruited some of the most talented individuals I had ever come across. My wife, Nanam, my business partner, Chef Stu. If I learned how to chef, I could learn how to become a farmer. I could be a chefarmer. In order to do this, I'd have to mimic the way that I'd become a chef, study the great farmers. There's this guy in Maine named Elliot Coleman who was growing things year-round without any energy inputs. I was blown away. Everyone asked, well, how are you going to start a farm and supply your restaurant year-round? It's like, well, this guy's been doing it for years. I can study what he's doing. I can go to his farm. Or Joel Salatin and a dozen books that he's published. They have names like You Can Farm, Pastured Poultry Profits, Everything That I Want to Do Is Illegal, and Fields of Farmers. I'm like, this is the guy that I'm going to study. Bill Mollison, he was a forest ecologist that was studying forest evolution. And what he realized was that we could actually design food systems that mimic the way that natural systems evolved. You know, we could design agriculture would be perennial, a permanent agriculture, that it supplies food for us and nourishes us, but it increases the ecological health, not destroys it. So we started farming. We started practicing the nuances of a farm. We started going to organic farms, figuring out when do you mulch the eggplants, when to plant the tomatoes, or how to trellis them. All these little things, just like in the kitchen. We just applied that exact same theory and thought process to the organic farm. We failed a lot. My first 3,000 seeds that I planted, cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, they all died a few days later. I had built a plot, started raising my pigs near the garden. They broke in, they ate everything at the garden. I can remember getting woken up several times at night, raccoons in the chicken coop. They ate or killed all of our laying hens, or showing up to a farmer's market every single week and barely break $100 in revenue. My time in those amazing kitchens urged me to push on. We can make this happen. And now, at Epiphany Farms, we grow hundreds of varieties of fruits and vegetables. We raise all of the pigs, the chickens, the eggs that our 2 restaurants need. We even sell to wholesale accounts in Chicago. Our pigs smile. They're happy. They live in an environment that is natural to them. We practice pasture rotation and paddock management, where we move them from paddock to paddock, managing the disturbance and moving all the resources around the property. We upcycle things, give them new life. A mobile chicken coop made out of an old RV that was going to get scrapped. Rip out the floor, put in a wire floor so that the excrement can fall onto the pasture. A solar panel on the ceiling that has an automated door that opens in the morning and closes at night. We actually train the chickens to utilize this, and it protects them. It protects them from predators. We can also turn it off at night and then move that chicken coop around the farm, distributing the nutrients. We set up an ecosystem for beneficial bugs and bacteria. We compost everything. We make all of our own fertilizers. We spray the crops with beneficial fungus and bacteria, just like we're making recipes. We farm the forest floor. We forage things like wild ramps and stinging nettles, wild berries and mushrooms. It's so productive underneath that timber. We harvest things that others consider weeds, and we include them in our recipes. Dandelions, oxalis, lamb's quarter, purslane. They're delicious. They're packed with nutrients. In the beginning, we only had a handful of volunteers and interns, and now we have over 80 employees, 4 full-time farmers, and we do this thing year-round. Thousands of guests come to our restaurants on a weekly basis. We're able to impact so many people's lives and tell them about this amazing thing of sustainable agriculture and do it right here in the breadbasket of America. The coolest thing about what we've been able to accomplish is being able to develop this place where our kids can live. They've lived here their entire life, and they get to watch this firsthand. Clover and Comfrey, Clover's almost 4, Comfrey's almost 2. They're going to get the eggs. They do it on a daily basis. They have pigs that they name. Clover's in charge of naming all the new pigs. Before she could talk, she could walk into a row of tomatoes. It'd have 5, 6 varieties, all different sizes, different shapes, different colors, and she knew exactly which one to pick, which one was the sweetest. She loved tomatoes and still does to this day. Comfrey, a little bit more into berries. He's staring at a plot of raspberries across from that path. He doesn't realize it, but in a couple weeks, he's going to have his very first lesson in seasonality, because the raspberries that he's used to harvesting are no longer going to be producing. And he's going to learn that before he can talk. I think that that's really cool, and I hope that that becomes the new normal. Thank you.